standing next to his Ukrainian counterpart at the White House a little more than a year ago. President Joe Biden pledged America's support for Ukraine as long as it takes. It's a commitment Russia has long repeated over the 22 months since its unprovoked invasion. On Tuesday, as President Volodymyr Zelensky made a new visit to Washington under dramatically changed circumstances, Biden promised that the United States would provide critical weapons and equipment as long as possible. The quiet shift in language seemed to acknowledge a reality that became even more stark after Zelensky's 11th-hour call for more help. America's support for Ukraine is neither a guarantee nor an open-ended commitment. What comes next for Ukraine? A harsh winter of Russian attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure, made worse by the dwindling hope of aid from Capitol Hill, is daunting. Biden administration officials say both the United States and Ukraine recognize that Ukraine will need to change its strategy next year if it wants to push the Russians further back and gain a more positive negotiating position when it comes time for peace talks. Ukrainian officials, including Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, have in recent weeks asked their U.S. counterparts for more face-to-face meetings with senior U.S. military officials and acknowledged that something needs to change in the way Ukraine is waging the war against Russia. In response, officials said, the United States is willing to allow Gen. Antonio Aguto, who currently heads the Joint Forces Command called Security Assistance Group Ukraine in Wiesbaden, Germany, to enter Ukraine for longer periods, advise Ukrainian forces. Officials have previously said Biden administration were reluctant to allow senior military officials to remain in Ukraine for extended periods of time, advise Ukrainian military on their campaign against Russia, fearful of being perceived by Russia as pulling the strings on Ukrainian operations. But the U.S. now believes Aguto's presence there will be key to better intelligence sharing and facilitating war games between the U.S. and Ukraine. This partnership could help ease some of disagreements that have arisen between the United States and Ukraine over how best to wage war against Russia. The USA wanted Ukraine to focus more on the south, which it believed was more strategically important than the east, but Zelensky and his advisors disagreed. Some U.S. officials were disappointed that Ukraine continued to delay its counterattack, which allowed Russia to significantly strengthen its defense lines. One of the officials said that these fortifications were not expected when the United States began training Ukrainians in combined arms and mechanized warfare. The United States discussed with Ukraine possibility that Ukrainians would shift their focus to retaining territory they currently control and building it up to point that Russia could not take it by force. It's called H.